Hello friends, and welcome to a very cozy, relaxed video which will have a little bit of books, a little bit of baking, and a lot of cozy. So make sure you grab yourself a lovely thing to drink, whether that be tea, coffee, matcha, water, whatever makes your heart happy, maybe some snacks, and get cozy and comfy on the sofa because we're going to have a very relaxed sit-down video today. I kind of want to talk about some great ways to get unstuck, meaning let me back up a little bit. I've been feeling very stuck lately where I feel like my creative brain is just a little overwhelmed. I've had a lot of stuff going on at work, but also a lot of things that are distracting me from like back in the US stuff. And I feel like sometimes I'm just a little overwhelmed and I have a hard time getting out of that overwhelmed feeling to kind of get back into my creative and joy-filled mind. And I know to be complete in joy at all times is not possible, at least for me, but I do want to kind of feel back into getting back into the groove of the things I really enjoy and not feeling like, oh, this is weighing me down, this is weighing me down, this is weighing me down. And so I thought if I feel this way, there's probably quite a few other people that feel this way, and I've been trying to think of new ways to kind of get myself back to the groove of things that I really do enjoy. We're always going to have things that kind of weigh us down, unfortunately. That's just how life works. I just read a book, Siddhartha by Romanticize. Whoops. And I'm actually going to be talking about this book in a video tomorrow, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts. But I read this for this month's Blind Date with a Book, Blind Date with a Bake challenge, and it was actually quite perfect for the time right now because it was talking about the ego, which is that little voice in your head that likes to talk a lot, to tell you, hey, you're doing great, or hey, you're doing terrible. And that voice can get really loud, and for like people, so I have anxiety, so that voice can sometimes get too loud. And I think for other people, they feel that same way, or that voice can get really negative of being like, hey, body positivity, oh yeah, that's crap, or hey, you need to work out more, hey, you need to eat less cake, hey. And so I think that can be a lot. And I think, unfortunately, just right now, I feel like it's not just me feeling that way, but it's just that feeling in general. And it's very heavy, and it's very unfortunate because I think as humans and as creative people, we also deserve joy and happiness. So we have to find that nice balance, and that's kind of what this book is about as well, as finding that nice balance between life does have suffering, unfortunately, but we also still have to find those joys. So I thought I would make a small video. Small, I don't really know how long this video is going to be, but a little video about like ways that I get myself unstuck from these stuck situations where I'm mentally, creatively, or physically just feeling very heavy. So that's what this video is going to be about. I hope you're excited. I hope you're interested. And for those of you who said on my community tab that you want to hear about books, don't worry. I'm going to talk about books as well because I thought, hey, why not? Books are a great way that I get unstuck as well. So it's also part of this video. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're actually going to start with some books, but we're not going to talk about books that I've read. We're actually going to talk about books that I want to read and I've been looking at on my phone. And this is one of the things I really do enjoy. I love window shopping on my phone and just looking at books that sound interesting or fascinating, or like the next story I want to kind of pick up. Or maybe if I see it at a bookshop or somewhere, I'm like, ooh, that's the book I want to pick up. So I'm going to talk about a couple books. I have them on my phone, so don't be shocked I'm looking down at my phone. While I'm looking this up, I also wanted to remind you that these ways of getting unstuck aren't just necessarily things of like these big things to unstick your life. Sounds really weird, but it's more focused on little things we can do to kind of get ourselves back out of the stuckness that we may be in creatively, mentally, emotionally, physically. These are small things that we can do. I'm sure there's bigger things, but I'm focused on like little tiny things that we can maybe start adding into our daily lives to help us get in the traction of movement. I did a video about starting your mornings off on like a positive note, like reading 15 minutes of a book, journaling, or doing art, or doing something like that, which is always really helpful, but not always possible. And I know this for a fact because I don't ever always have time. That's contradicting. I don't always have time for doing that kind of stuff in the morning unless I'm working from home. But if I'm going to the office, I just don't have the mental capacity to get up and read and then get ready for work and then go if I'm trying to be there at 7:20 in the morning. So just wanting to keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and talk about some books. I saved a couple websites on my phone of like lists of books that have been really fascinating to me. So let me go ahead and open those up real quick. This one's actually from a website called Electric Lit, and it's 15 novels in translation you should be reading this summer and fall. And I love reading horror books at this time of year, so like it's a perfect time to start reading like horror for me. So I was kind of looking for some horror books, but this list actually contains some other really interesting books, so I thought I would mention a couple of them. One's called Engagement by Gun-Britt Sundström. I'm going to put the names up here, and this one's translated from Swedish by Kathy Saranpa. So this was published in Sweden in the 17s and translated in English for the first time this year. Engagement by Gun-Britt Sundström follows Martina, a disenchanted humanities student in her 20s, living on student aid and frequenting whatever seminar catches her attention. When she meets Gustav, it's far from a passionate romance. He's not exactly her type, and she's not really interested in settling down. Despite this, she finds herself falling into established routines with him, performing unexpected rituals of coupledom, cut from the same cloth but wanting entirely different things out of their relationship. The two endlessly discuss what their coupledom actually means, who loves whom more, and what the right way to love really is. In a time of social change and upheaval, Martina endlessly asks herself questions that feel as relevant today as ever. So I thought that was actually quite fascinating. I love reading about relationships and how people kind of connect or disconnect, and I think this one would be really fascinating. And I love the fact that it was written originally in the 70s and it's just being translated now. So it's 50 years later and we're just getting the opportunity to read this in English. I can't read Swedish, unfortunately, but now I get the chance to read and enjoy this wonderful novel. There's another one that's actually written by the author who wrote Diary of a Void, and I read Diary of a Void, and this Diary of a Void is about a woman who, we get the perspective of a woman who sees that pregnant women in Japan are able to get more lenient work time because of pregnancy. So she starts to pretend that she's pregnant, but at one point we as the reader don't know if we can trust the narrator, and we as the reader don't know if the character is actually pregnant or not. That was really confusing to me. It's really fascinating. It's a really good book, but the author also has another book called When the Museum is Closed. The author is Emi Yagi, by the way, and this is translated by from Japanese by Yuki Tajima. And this one is a surreal idea taken about love and loneliness and beauty, more love. And this one is about When the Museum is Closed follows Rika Harauchi, a part-time worker splitting her weeks between a frozen food warehouse and a museum where her job is to make conversation with a statue of Venus after closing hours. Recommended by her old professor for her proficiency in Latin, Rika begins to visit the statue on Monday evenings and together with the anthropomorphic goddess explores new ideas and perspectives, soon finding herself in love. But her newfound life is threatened when the museum curator wants to keep Venus all to herself, forcing Rika to decide what she will do about this strange new connection. Leaning into the same quiet surrealism in Diary of a Void, When the Museum is Closed is a dreamlike take on desire, loneliness, and transformation power of being perceived by others. Doesn't that just sound so weird? So, another one that sounds really cool. Let's see. The Midnight Shift by Cheon Son-ran, translated from Korean by Gina Peng. Part crime novel, part queer vampire love story. The Midnight Shift by Cheon Son-ran author of 1,000 Blues and winner of the 4th Korean Sci-Fi Literature Award, follows Detective Soo-yeon, who takes it upon herself to investigate a string of deaths at a local hospital. Her colleagues all ruled the deaths as deceased, 4 elderly patients who seamlessly all jumped off the 6th floor window as suicides caused by loneliness. But Soo-yeon, whose grandmother is also a patient at the same floor, is scared something will happen to her next. As she starts investigating, a mysterious woman named Violet steps forward, claiming to be a vampire hunter. She is searching for her ex-lover, Lily, and assists a vampire is behind the mysterious deaths. Diving into the fantastical The Midnight Shift is a fast-paced commentary on loneliness, isolation, and grief. I think we have a theme here on what these books are recommend. these books are all about. But doesn't that just sound crazy? So I love a translated novel, especially if these novels are books that are possible books that I would have never had the chance to touch. And so one of the things that get me kind of like unstuck is getting excited about novels that are just so crazy and so almost unworldly or such a different perspective because it's a different culture. Let's do one more. This one's a Portuguese author. So Grace Period by Mary Judith de Carvalho, translated from Portuguese by Margaret Jewel Costo. First published in 1973, Grace Period by Marie Judith de Carvalho is a story about a man at a crossroads about how to move forward with one foot stuck in the past. After 25 years away, Mattia Silva returns to sell his childhood home in order to send his dying girlfriend on a dream trip to Acapulco. In a rush to make it happen before she passes, he sells the house to the first bidder, a former friend whose wife, Gracia, was Mattias' first love. Struggling to reconcile the woman he sees now with the beauty in his past and the events that ultimately tore them apart, he feels unable to change directions in a life that seems out of his control. Set at the cusp of coronation revolution that would come to overthrow a 4 decades-long dictatorship, and told in Maria Judith de Carvalho's Unsettlement and Price's prose, Grace Period stands as a parallel to a country on the eve of change. Ooh. That sounds so fun. Well, not fun, but you know what I mean. It's just the ideas of these books are just so fascinating, and then it's also like based in different cultures, so you're getting such a different look into the world. So that's kind of a list of books. I'm going to go ahead and list this website in the description below so you can check it out if you want to. It's Electric Lit. And there's one other list that I wanted to talk about. So this is New York Times Best Books of the Year so far, and I'm not looking at the New York Times website. I'm actually looking at the Penguin Random House website, which they posted then the list because I don't have a New York Times subscription. So there are a few books on here that I'm quite interested in. The romance ones, as you know, I'm not a romance reader, so I generally don't pick those ones up. But there were some on here that I thought were really quite fascinating. And one of them, for example, is The Marriage at Sea by Sophia Elmhurst. This one's an electrifying true story of a young couple shipwrecked at sea, a mind-blowing tale of observation, survival, and partnership stretched to its limits. Top propulsive and dazzling, The Marriage at Sea pairs an adrenaline-fueled high seas adventure with a gutting love story that asks why we love difficult people and who we become under the most extreme conditions imaginable. I think I have a theme of books that I'm looking at right now, and I think it's really interesting because we're talking about like getting unstuck, and these books are kind of focused on like really hard and difficult situations, and what do you do to get out of those difficult situations. Even the vampire one, your grandmother is in a hospital and multiple people have just committed or jumped out a window from that floor. What do you do in that difficult situation? And I think most books are based on that, but this one, I think I'm dealing with a lot of like focused on grief and change and love. And don't worry, my relationship with Michelle is great, so nothing's happening there. But I think it's really interesting to like focus on like how my work life changes or how my other things change and like how I get through those things when they're being difficult. So I think that's one of the reasons why these books are really fascinating when I'm trying to get unstuck, because it's a way for me to kind of see a different problem and focus on something else and maybe almost not compare my problem, but relate my problem. So that way, like, for example, if I'm feeling not heard and I'm reading a book about a relationship where a partner feels unheard, then I can kind of see, okay, what does she do or he do or they do, and what can I do in my personal life? And it's not always comparable, but it does definitely kind of help in certain aspects. Like Siddhartha, this one did help me in understanding joy and kind of finding my new step, or finding not a new step, but a different take, or maybe taking a step away and finding joy in something else. So this is very deeper than I normally do, but I think the idea of being stuck is just kind of unfortunate because we all feel that way sometimes, and it's a normal thing, and we are here together, and we get through it together. So I'm going to read one more book, and then we're going to move on to the next one. And one of them is because it has a bunny on it. This one's called Raising Hair by Chloe Dalton, a moving and fascinating meditation on freedom, trust, loss, and our relationship with the natural world, exploring through a story of one woman's unlikely friendship with a wild hare. Raising Hair chronicles their journey together while also taking a deep dive into the lives and nature of hares and the way they have been viewed historically in art, literature, and folklore. We witness firsthand the joy in this extraordinary relationship between human and animal, which serves as a reminder that the best thing and the most beautiful experiences arise when we least expect them. I think that's a perfect place to stop with the book recommendations, because this book just sounds so heartwarming, and I do feel that you can get a lot of love and joy from having a pet at home. And I have my 2 cats, and they bring so much joy to my life, and so I think it's always quite interesting to read books that kind of connect those ideas as well. So those are my book thoughts at the moment, and I do hope that you find one of these interesting. Let me know if you're actually wanting to read any of them, or if you have, and if you have, what you thought, and if you haven't, which book would you read, and maybe we can read it together. So those are my book thoughts. I'm going to move on to the next thing I would do to kind of get myself unstuck from a situation, and that's pretty easy, and that's connected closely to me, and so I'm thinking maybe it might help you, and if it doesn't necessarily help you because it's too difficult, then we're going to do something very easy. I know that was very confusing. The second thing I normally do is baking something. And I know that can sound really difficult, and sometimes for me, when I'm feeling really stuck, I feel just kind of closed off and heavy, and I don't want to do anything. So the hardest part is just getting up and doing something. And one of those things is that kind of gets me like doing something and joyful and kind of distractedly is baking. And that is because when I'm baking, I'm completely focused on what I'm doing. I don't have time to think about anything else because I have to make sure this is working and everything's going together. But when we're kind of confused or heavy or can't think straight, baking something complicated is not the way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and make some Rice Krispie treats. So I'm actually going to make Rice Krispie treats with you guys today because I thought it would be really fun, and they're really easy, and they take like 5 minutes. So we're going to pop into the kitchen and make some Rice Krispie treats real fast together. Yeah, okay, good. So, do Rice Krispies treats really count as baking? Probably not. But we did put something in a pan and mix it, and now I have these beautiful Rice Krispie treats. Mine aren't actually Rice Krispie treats. Mine are like wheat puff treats because we don't have Rice Krispie treats here, but they're still delicious. They're just a little bit more crunchy. I haven't had a Rice Krispie treat in so long, and they're so tasty. I'm also a marshmallow girl, though I love marshmallows. So I've been craving Rice Krispie treats for a really long time and thought, oh, we don't have Rice Krispies. How am I going to make a Rice Krispie treat? And then I was just looking in the store the other day and I thought, why don't I just make them out of this cereal? It's perfectly fine. It's still flavorless cereal and it's just puffy cereal. So it works. So I think that's a great way to kind of get yourself moving. It's just doing something super simple, a very simple task that keeps your brain distracted. So not folding laundry, not doing dishes, not doing those things, because that's when your brain's going to be most active. I actually, talking about another book, I was reading Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given, and she talks about also the ego. And I think the ego is the main reason I get stuck most of the time. And I was talking about it earlier, the ego is that little tiny voice in your head that loves to talk a lot and tells you what you should think and do and say and act, and also makes you rethink about all the things you just did and wonder if you did it correctly. Yeah. And when I'm doing dishes or brushing my teeth or folding laundry, my ego is talking a lot and filling my brain full of all the things I don't want to be thinking about right now. And I think Florence Given did a great job explaining like how when we have those thoughts, they can sometimes lead us to kind of more of a negative mindset, or they can lead us into kind of a spiraling mindset. And one of the best ways to not be thinking about that is finding joy. And baking gives me joy. But for example, what I'm talking about is when you're folding laundry or doing chores, you're not able to get unstuck because you're literally keeping yourself thinking about those stuck thoughts. So do something that's going to make you feel unstuck. Do something that's going to make you feel like you can't think about any of the other things going on. So for me, baking is not always easy, but that's what makes it perfect, because I literally can't think about anything else. And then it also brings me joy. My heart fills with so much joy when I can bake something delicious, or when I can eat the thing I just made. Like, I made brittle, I'll talk about it in tomorrow's video, and it was amazingly delicious. So it's more important not about exactly what you're doing, but a thing that's going to make you distracted from all the other things happening around you. So, for example, we just baked, and one of the other things I would recommend for you to get unstuck is doing any other creative activity. I know that can feel like a lot. I know that can feel really heavy. I know that can be really frustrating. Or you're like, oh, what do I work on though? Do something small, like something really itty bitty. Like, for example, just drawing a cloud and then drawing more clouds and then painting those clouds, or practicing watercolors, or finding a YouTube, I looked this way because my TV's over here, finding a YouTube video where you can learn a new skill, like if you want to crochet, or if you want to learn how to do watercolors, or if you want to do anything else. Getting in the habit of, when you're starting to feel that stuck motion, just moving to something that's going to bring joy. So any creative activity that's going to bring you joy. Or if creativity is not going to work, so not watercolors or anything like that, then maybe like cleaning, not necessarily folding laundry, but something that actually gets your brain moving. For example, working on the garden, making sure that your weeds are all taken out, or making sure that you're repotting your plants for the fall season. But things that are just like actually going to keep your brain active. Or for example, since we're coming into the fall season, decorating for your fall season. Your brain can't think about other things while you're doing that, because you're thinking, okay, do I want to hang my ghost here, or do I want to hang my ghost here, or do I want to do 3 ghosts? You have options. So I think one of the things that I really like doing when I'm feeling kind of like I don't know what to do, start small. So Rice Krispie treats for me are small. Also doing little paintings are small. Something that I know is not going to take me all day, but it's just going to be an hour of just something great. And if it's bad, like my painting doesn't turn out the way I did, that's practice. And it's exciting to know that I'm practicing. But if I get something actually right, then I feel actually immense joy. And that joy means something. That joy is almost contagious for ourselves. We can constantly kind of keep pushing towards that joy. So I find that really exciting. Or another simple thing you can do, and this one's risky. You kind of have to find a nice little balance for it. And what I do, again, I'm making it confusing because I'm not telling you. So the next thing I would love and recommend, and I do when I'm feeling stuck, is going for a walk. And I know that can seem risky because when you go for walks, sometimes you're thinking. But one of the things I really, really love to do, and I'm sure if you've watched some of my other videos when I go for walks, you've seen what I'm doing, I generally love to take pictures or little videos. And so when I'm going on these walks, my brain's not focused on all the other things happening. My brain's focused on finding specific things. So for example, when I'm going for a walk, I'm looking for flowers during the summer and spring season. During fall, I'm looking for mushrooms, and during winter, I'm looking for specific types of like needles for pine needles and stuff like that, or pine cones. So my brain is so focused on certain items that I'm looking for that I'm like laser focused. So during the summer and spring months, I love going out and taking pictures of flowers. I have so many flower photos, but I love doing it because it's just so fascinating. And then I can also look up the flowers when I come home, or I can do a little bit of research. I have flower books, and I have mushroom books, and I have tree books. So I get to do those things when I come home, and that's exciting for me. It's like a scavenger hunt for things that are out there in the wild. I love doing it during mushroom season. It's really, really fun during mushroom season. I did it last year when we were staying in a cabin, and it was so much fun because when we got back from a hike, I was sitting outside and I was searching for the mushrooms in my mushroom book, and it was just so much fun. So I think there's so many different things you can do, small things that you can do to kind of get unstuck. And I think it's just finding the things that bring you joy. That's the main thing, is what brings you joy, what brings you peace, and do those things to start bringing a little bit more joy. And it's then a cycle. And then you can work yourself up and work your way up and keep doing those things. And at one point you're gonna be like, okay, I can keep going. And those are the most important parts. And it doesn't matter if it takes a little bit of time, but the most important part is just don't sit in it too long, because then you get really stuck and it's hard to get out. And it's okay if you're in one of those moments. You just have to encourage yourself to take that first step out. And I believe in you. If I can do it, you can do it. We can all do it. It just takes a little bit of time and strength. If you ever need help or a friend back there, I'm here to help. I'm not a therapist, so I can't help with any of that stuff, but I can be encouraging and motivational. I have heard about that before. So I'm here to help motivate you to get unstuck and kind of discover new things. I know this isn't necessarily cozy content, but it's cozy in the sense of we're here to find joy together, and we're going to keep finding joy together and keep finding the little things that just make us a little happier each day. Let me make sure I've talked about all the things I plan to. I have my notes on my phone. So we've talked about baking something. We've talked about going for walks. We've talked about kind of redecorating and maybe working on the garden. And we've talked about small little creativity tasks. So the last thing, and this one I love doing as well, because this one's like a little treat. Sitting down, lighting a beautiful cozy candle, and having just a cozy movie on, or something that's going to warm my heart. It could be a movie that's going to make me cry, like Me Before You, You Before Me, You Before Me, or About Time. It could be, I can't do Marley and Me. That one just makes me cry every time, and it's really sad cries. And my kitties are here, so no. But it could also be if you're into horror movies, it could be movies that make your heart racing and then make you laugh because you got startled. It could be RuPaul's Drag Race. It could be anything that's going to make your heart happy, because those are the things you deserve, and those are the things you need to kind of be like, yeah, I got this. Because we all have it. We all feel those really hard days that are just a little bit more sufferable, insufferable. And sometimes we just need a little bit more joy than normal, or we just need joy in general. And so I highly recommend just finding something each day that brings you a little bit of joy. For me, I have it kind of easy. Flowers are a win for me. Mushrooms, double win. It's like a point system. Bumblebees, always. I love a bumblebee. Wasps, not so much, but bumblebees are just, they win my heart every single time. I can watch bumblebees for an hour and be perfectly happy. So we got flowers, mushrooms, and bumblebees, and those things are out quite a bit throughout the year. And those things I can look at and just be like, oh, the world is sometimes just so beautiful. And so find those little things that just make you think, oh, sometimes the world is so beautiful. Sometimes the world is so delicious. Sometimes the world is full of wonderful literature. So I know it can be hard, but you got this, and we're going to be unstuck together. And sometimes we'll get stuck again, but we'll get unstuck again together. So I know this was kind of a weirder video, but I do hope it was helpful, and I do hope it was interesting. And I want to be here for you, and you guys are always here for me. So if you ever need anything, you can always find me on Instagram. But I know this community is very kind and loving. So if you want to talk about ways that help you get unstuck and kind of give recommendations for everybody else, I would love for you to write in the comments below. I love getting new recommendations on how to get unstuck from situations, like not from glue. That's just using a lot of soap. But Gorilla Glue. What do you do when you get Gorilla Glue stuck on your hands? That's a good question. Anyway, so if you have recommendations on how to kind of get unstuck in like a little bit of emotional rut or mental rut or creative rut, I highly recommend putting it down in the comments below. It's always great to share little ideas with each other, and that's everything. So if you guys liked this video and found it interesting or found it helpful, let me know, because then I know that this stuff actually is good to make about, if that made sense. But it makes me know that this is the kind of stuff you guys like. But if you guys like other kinds of content more, just let me know. If you did like it, make sure you give it a like. And I'll leave you guys there. So subscribe if you want to see more, like if you want to see more. And I'll leave you to a lovely day, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, because tomorrow's going to be my my blind date with a book and blind date with a bake July edition. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Ciao!